Oh, how's it going? Uh, they always say, don't they, follow the money, and you don't really expect it to lead back to the Vatican. You think of the Vatican as a place of holiness and of the leader of the church. But of course, there's Vatican City, as there is London City, kind of a separate entity which has been told to have incalculable wealth. Then other people go, oh no, all that gold was moved in 2020. Whatever they say, the Vatican hold an authority and control over, I think it's 60-40, so 60% Catholic, uh, 50 60% Vatican control over all British wealth, and can't remember who the 40 is. I don't think it's even the Crown. I don't think it's even them. Um, so it's interesting that last year in September, October, I wrote to the Vatican Chancery Court because they had been having a very interesting conversation with the banks. Now, you might say, well, who's regulating the banks? That's what I've been asking. And who can claim this money back? Yeah, we have these payment bonds that say, yeah, we're owed that, and or they're owed that, and still can't seem to extract it from the banks. And we're like, oh well, the Vatican's over the bank, and then the Universal Postal Union, because it preceded all that incorporation and fair trade. They're like the overseers, but actually. A lot of people, probably even within the Vatican, probably within the Universal Postal Union, they are finding they have no control. They have no say in what the bank pays back and what it doesn't, and what it charges and everything else, and what it supports, most importantly at the moment in this time of war after war, which in bank terms are good loans. That's why the banks support wars, like even the sovereign, what they're called, Israel sovereign bonds, are basically the reason they're given these loans repeatedly is because they're a good bet. They're simply backing Israel, and its missions, in terms of weapons purchases and whatever else they plan to do, because they're a good bet. They're the stronger power. They're likely to pay back with interest. And of course, loans for banks are very enjoyable because they are just delivered as money on a screen. They never actually come out of the reserves, the gold or any other assets, and yet they're paid back in real life. So the banks are really a law unto themselves, but that doesn't mean we kind of go, the Vatican can't do anything anymore, or the UPU can't do anything anymore. Think of the power if either one of those issued a mea culpa. Now, mea culpa is a self-blame decree. It's when some leader says, I'd like to take responsibility for my part in this. We have let the situation and system get so rotten that actually the higher jurisdiction of the living people is no longer being acknowledged, or there has been fraud, or there's been misrepresentation, or there's been violence or enslavement. It only has to say those things loud and clear for the rest of people and some enough people would hear it. It has to be a public enough notice that enough people would hear it and realise that we've been duped, kind of jolt people into saying, oh, that makes them criminals. Let's not have them in charge of our money, in charge of our social decision making, in charge of what's planned and what's released, etc., and deployed in our countries or anywhere, to actually take their money and the resources away from the people that are actually doing it, the corporations. I call them both people and corporations because corporations are unaccountable, but there are always people facilitating those things, and there are personal liability charges coming down the line. But anyway, I wrote this letter, and I'll just start with it because, and I'll stop then and start again, because what Pope Francis said last year. Now, last year was a Jubilee year. That will be explained. So the major significance of this Jubilee is that Pope Francis said that the forgiveness of debt by the World Bank is in fact a matter of justice, not generosity. And that's I gave the reference for that. It seems this Jubilee could bring about major systemic change. From today, the 24th December 2024 to the 6th January 2025, there is a period set aside by the Vatican for debt forgiveness. This is credited to the Bible as a period of Jubilee. In Leviticus it is written, "And you shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim the liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a Jubilee for you, when each of you shall return to his property, and each of you shall return to his family." Imagine that. What have we got? 130 million displaced people, forcibly displaced people. All must be returned to their property, private property, not just registered to us through some land registry, and return to our families. And Luke's Gospel adds that the Jubilee is to set the downtrodden free. Now, once you realise how people have been duped out of being the beneficiaries of all their labour, all their efforts, and even just their basic birthright, this idea of being downtrodden will be like, oh, well, maybe we absolutely have. This analysis is observed on the Vatican website and quite clearly refers to public and not national debt or corporate debt. In articles from August 2024, Archbishop Rino Fisichella, the pro-prefect of the Dicastery for Evangelization, refers to debt forgiveness by the World Bank as being a matter of justice, not of generosity. There are at least two reasons why this statement may have been made. I'd also say that although we've lost Pope Francis, we do still have a Pope, and we maybe still have Archbishop Rino Fisichella, who was doing those negotiations with the World Bank, and we'd love to obviously hear from him. So firstly, the statement, it suggests that someone is actually owed the return from the World Bank. And here I share Paul Strama's The Marshall Plan, Part 2, Who is Owed the Return. Now, the Marshall Plan was when there was a Great World War, don't know why I say great, the World War, gigantic, and to build back afterwards, the banks were lent massive legacies of people that it was indentured for the upliftment of humanity. So that money, be it silver, gold, other assets, were lent to banks that they could then lend out again to people to build back countries that were demolished by that war. It was supposed to be paid back in 50 years. Then there was, handily enough, another world war, and then there was another occasion, 2005, when the courts again said that money had to be paid back. And most recently in the Vatican Chancery Court, they've said, yes, that money has to be paid back. But I think it was by the end of last year, otherwise the banks are in default at the end of their financial year. So whether that was last year, this year, really we'd settle for right now. And so that was in response to a presentation in 2023. The Vatican Chancery Court agreed that the World Bank should return assets to the heirs of the legacies from whom they were borrowed. To be compliant with the Vatican Court's decision, the assets must be returned by the end of this year, 2024. Previous court orders from 2005, the families had found impossible to enforce. It could be that the Jubilee will be used to process these necessary settlements by the World Bank, but no more than that. And I put reference to that claim before the Vatican Chancery Court. The debt justice claim, though, that 54 countries, debt justice is a group, a non-governmental group that monitor these things. They claim that 54 countries are in debt crisis, an amount that has doubled since the pandemic, and also have research to show that Mozambique, for example, is owed $2 billion in hidden debt. Big reference there. Maybe the Vatican has acknowledged that there are too many individual crises to resolve and are instead referring to justice as a revised banking system that must be put in place this Jubilee. I'll stop there for a moment.